Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
When the energy is high and the music is right, pushing past your limits becomes that much easier. Take a reggaeton run or strength class on the Peloton tread, and you'll quickly see why these are the workouts you've been searching for. Every day brings new challenges from expert coaches who train and speak the same language as you do. Level up your workouts with Peloton Tread. Find your push, find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
When the energy is high and the music is right, pushing past your limits becomes that much easier. Take a reggaeton run or strength class on the Peloton tread, and you'll quickly see why these are the workouts you've been searching for. Every day brings new challenges from expert coaches who train and speak the same language as you do. Level up your workouts with Peloton Tread. Find your push, find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hello everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. My name is John Bleaser. I'm a writer and film critic, and here we are at the Cannes Film Festival for special report number 4, and I'm happy to say I am joined by an old friend, Mr. Thomas Schultz.
Hello, hi John, nice, thanks for having me. Looking forward to our little talk while we're here in line waiting for the substance.
I love the fact that we're doing it here in the line, because this is such an experience of Cannes, which nobody ever actually records anything on, and yet the sound of the people around us talking is what we spend a lot of time listening to.
Yes, and they're all probably more knowledgeable than we are, but we're doing our best, I guess, and trying to hang in there. So it's like the half of the festival is over. And I think there's always a dip in energy. I mean, your own energy, but also in the energy of the festival. So I guess we'll make the best of it, and then we'll see what'll turn up next.
Absolutely, and we're using the other people around us to give us more energy. I think we're sucking from them like parasites or like leeches. I saw an animated film today called Savages by a Swiss director, Claude Barra, I believe he's called, who did My Life as a Courgette, and it was a great film. But we're going to talk about some other films now. First of all, I'd love to talk about the film by Guy Maddern et al. With other directors called Rumours.
Yes. See, that's what happens when you do it sort of live. Galen and Evan Johnson are the two other directors. I think he made at least the last film together with them already. So, I mean, they're kind of like a worked-in team. And I think Evan is the one who wrote the screenplay for Rumours, which is, I don't even know how to call it, a science fiction political farce, comedy, satire about the end of the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, and a little bit of horror. There's like zombie kind of creatures turn up, masturbating zombies as well, which I've got to say that's a first for me.
Yes, in Germany, the I think so-called bog corpses are a thing. I mean, they actually exist. I mean, those are like mummified corpses found in bogs in certain areas in Germany. But I've never seen them turned into a topic in a movie, in a comedy. And I think, there's a very great first scene where the 7 leaders of the world have to pose for a photo with one of those bog mummies, which very much sets the tone for the film, which is surreal and over the top, funny, witty. Sometimes I feel like the movie doesn't really know where it's gonna go, but I think that's one of the fun things about watching it, because it feels like you're discovering the film together with the directors while they make it. I really enjoyed that.
I've got to say, it's got a great cast as well, led by Kate Blanchett, who plays the German Chancellor, who's hosting the G7, because this is the G7 summit in which it all takes place.
Yes, in a fictitious castle called Danke-Rede, which is a funny wordplay because a Danke is a thank you speech. Danke-Rede.
Ah, okay.
Which they're pretty much like working on all through the film while the world is falling apart around them. They're being isolated after meeting in a gazebo. It gets dark, and suddenly they're alone and on their own and helpless, as leaders of the world are prone to be. And they kind of like have to navigate their way through uncharted waters, going through the forest, which is a super German thing, going through dark forests, because, it harkens back to the old fairy tales by the Grimm brothers. So that's kind of like, to me it was fun watching that. And they discover giant brains, and sometimes you feel like you're almost into Mars Attacks territory. But it always stays, I think, very true to Guy Madden's vision of a very surreal world where anything and everything can happen. And as you said, the cast is wonderful. Kate Blanchett, because she's wearing exactly the same clothes and the same hairdo as Angela Merkel did. But she's called Hilda, and I think she looks more like Lady Diana, actually.
Absolutely, I had the same thought when I saw it. And who's the French actor who plays the French Prime Minister?
Denis Ménochet. He's absolutely wonderful and great. He was in this great Spanish movie 2 years ago.
Beasts?
Asbestos, yes.
Oh, so good.
That was I think in Critics Week in Cannes. Rodrigo Sorogoyen, I think. And that was a great film, and that guy is so great because he's also in the first scene of Inglourious Bastards. He plays the farmer in the little shed where they, the little hut where they're in, and he has such a immense physical presence. He's like fleshy and he's like meaty and he's like a real dude, but he's also always like super vulnerable under the surface, which I love, and he's such a great actor.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's also very terrifying in a film called Custody. I think it was maybe a Belgian film some years ago.
I think it was a French movie, and I think it even won a French Film Prize or something, the César. That was a great film, and I wanted to bring it up, but I could not remember the title, so thanks, John.
Excellent. And so one of the things that I noticed about the film as I was watching it is that the political satire, although it was very trenchant and very cutting at times, there was a kind of generosity to the characters. It wasn't just like your normal all politicians are evil sort of thing.
No, he breaks them down into real human beings having human problems, and he's even talking about an affair that the Canadian Prime Minister might have had with the British Prime Minister, who's
in Rimini,
who's female in the film, and so I thought it was really lovely. Especially bringing up Canada, because of course Guy Madden is Canadian, so that guy kind of like takes front and center. And I do not remember his name, but he's a really nice and good actor, and it was fun watching him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought as well, when we got to later on in the film, certain things happening and very supernatural and everything, that I began to realize that really what the target was when you have such a huge, vague existential crisis, it's difficult to come up with distinct solutions.
Yes, all through the film, they keep working on that final speech. which finally, I don't know if you can go into that kind of territory.
Well, let's say the solution is a really good joke.
Yes, and what I loved about it is that the final quote in the solution is by the most famous of all Canadian musicians ever.
Excellent, brilliant. And what other films have you seen that you've liked?
Well, you've already talked about Emilia Perez, I think, yesterday, and that's my absolutely favorite. I mean, I was just like absolutely in love with the film. I liked everything about it. I was completely taken by it. But
potential Palm winner?
Well, I mean, if they were handing out the Palms now, I would say they're hands down winner. But there's we already talked about it. There's Sean Baker down the road in 2 days, I think. Apparently the Substance is really good, and of course, I mean, there's like the dark horse at the end of the festival, the Mohamed Razulov film.
Miguel Gomez is coming up as well.
That's true as well, but I mean, just from what I've seen so far, I mean, Emilia Perez, I think it has at least one palm for sure. Let's just see what it's gonna be. I mean, people really took to the film. It had the best reaction so far from the audience, from an audience standpoint. So we'll see. So what have I seen?
What about Limonov, The Ballad?
Yes, I was just going to talk about that. I saw that today. It was kind of exciting because it was not a regular press screening. It was the official screening of the film. And of course, so they brought Kirill Serebrennikov, the director, into the Palais, and he was watching the film with us. And it's interesting because, I mean, he is a very famous theater director in Russia who has been at odds with the authorities forever, who's like one of the big enemies of Putin. And from his first film on, that in 2018, Leto, like all of his films have been shown in Cannes, but he could never attend because he was always under house arrest or in jail. So, I mean, this was the very first time he could watch one of his movies in Cannes with an audience, and it was it was actually really, really emotional, and people really loved him. I'm not sure if all of the people really loved the movie because it is very Serebrennikov. It's super in your face. It is very punkish. It doesn't want to be liked or loved, but he always tries to find his way of portraying a basically very unlikable character who, I mean, of course, was a lyricist, a poet and writer, and later turned to politics. But when he turned to politics, he was a super right-wing, almost fascist.
Well,
kind of guy.
Let's say fascist. I mean, it's a little bit like the Russian Ezra Pound. Yes. You know, people like his poetry, but his politics a little. Well, I mean, some people like them, but I certainly didn't.
Yes, no, but I mean, so you kind of have to take the character warts and all for who he is and what he is. And I mean, even as a poet, he does not come across as very sympathetic. But I think the performance of Ben Whishaw is transcendent. I think he's absolutely great. He really embodies the character from the early 20s up to his late 50s or early 60s.
And he ages very well.
He ages super well.
I know you're a big music fan. What did you think of the soundtrack? Because I got a little bit Velvet Underground out.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's something that also harkens back already to Leto. I remember he used like The Passenger by Iggy Pop back then. And I felt a lot of things that he does in Limonov has echoes to Leto, which is still my favorite film of his, because that was different because it was so generous and so warm-hearted, which all his other films are not. So I kind of like, this is kind of like the bad brother of Leto. And I agree, there's a little too much Lou Reed for me, and I probably could have. I did not really need Pretty Vacant by the Sex Pistols, although I have to say the scene where he uses this one tracking shot where Limonov at the end of 70s pushes through the door of a strip club and then for the next 3.5 minutes walks through different rooms and walks through the 80s. I thought that was transcendent. It was absolutely great. I totally loved that.
Yeah, it was a real tour de force, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, I don't know if I'm being unfair on the film, but I very much found it sour when we finished with those titles and the real imagery of Limonov is the real person. And it sort of says that when they invaded the Donbass, Limonov and his army of skinheads joined in the invasion, and he died 2 years before the Ukraine invasion. And I just felt, we were in Cannes a year ago, and we were sort of cheering on Ukraine, and now we're here, and this guy's a kind of hero of the far right in Russia.
Yes. Well, one has to say there is a Sergei Losnitz documentary playing this year in Cannes, which I think it has not played yet. It will play.
The Invasion.
The Invasion, and I think that will paint a very different picture. I was kind of like astounded by the ending of the film, but I feel like that even in the end, I mean, what I think the movie does really well, I mean, what it manages is it gets into the head of Limonov, and at the same time it keeps a distance from him. But I think that is because in one way Serebrennikov sees himself in Limonov. Early on in the movie he says something like, well, if you're an artist or a writer, you have to be exiled from your country, otherwise you cannot be a writer. So I think that speaks very directly to Serebrennikov, and also probably how he sees himself as an artist now that he has left Russia, or he had to leave Russia, and he's living, I think, in France now. So I think there is a very direct connection, but at the same time he's also bewildered by the guy. And there's things he can relate to, like the homosexual experiences he has. Serebrennikov is very out, and Wishaw, of course, as well. But also, I mean, I think he cannot make heads and tails of what happened to the guy, you know.
Right, and he doesn't really go there, which is kind of my problem with the film. That it spends a long time in New York in the 70s and not so much time in Russia in the 90s, and when it went a bit problematic.
Yes, what I found interesting, there's a lot of parallels to a German writer and filmmaker from the 70s and 80s, Thomas Brasch, who has a really great biopic made about him 2-3 years ago by Andreas Kleinert, Dear Thomas, and it won like 9 German film prizes. And it's interesting because there's so many parallels to their lives. I mean, of course, he's coming from the GDR, and he had to move to, he moved to West Germany in the mid-70s, but he was the same as Limonov in the way that, you know, he never denounced his home country, even when he was in the West, and he became super critical of the West. You know, he was kind of like a dissident in the dissident society.
Right.
So, I mean, they are very different. And also, it's also true that Brasch, at the end of his life, he became very bitter, very disenfranchised, very... he could not work anymore. He had like a 3,000-page novel that he could not finish, which I see there are parallels to Limonov as well. But Limonov then went into politics and became a super asshole. Brasch just died and faded away. And what's the saying? What's the saying of the famous Canadian musician?
Yeah, exactly. Better to die.
Better to burn out.
Burn out
than fade away.
Wonderful. Well, listen, I think we're about to go into the Debussy. So thank you so much, Thomas. That was great. It was lovely talking to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, John, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Sorry.
No, I was really interested by you.
If there's one thing that my family and friends know me for, it's being an amazing gift giver. I owe it all to Celebrations Passport from 1-800-Flowers.com, my one-stop shopping site that has amazing gifts for every occasion. With Celebrations Passport, I get free shipping on thousands of amazing gifts. And the more gifts I give, the more perks and rewards I earn. To learn more and take your gift giving to the next level, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.